some positivity on this channel. Today I want to talk about something that I actually like and that makes me happy. Arguably my favorite sitcom of the last 10 years, Superstore. I have finally finished the 6th and last season and may I say it is awesome. So please enjoy my spoiler-filled review of Superstore Season 6. So firstly I want to congratulate Superstore on acknowledging the COVID pandemic. I mean they kind of had to because it's in line with the themes of their show. Superstore has always been a blend of a workplace sitcom akin to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Office or... yeah, that's all I can think of. I don't think Just Shoot Me would be a good comparison. But unlike other workplace sitcoms or sitcoms in general, it focuses on the people at the bottom of society. And not a romanticized version. No attractive immigrant girl who marries a rich guy, no handsome young man who turns into a criminal mastermind, but is largely uneducated, minimum wage workers with little to no option for social mobility that also look like actual people. Unpolished and unromanticized, often out of shape and also not in perfect hygiene, let alone not that attractive. They don't look anything like the romanticized image of poor people, of immigrants, whatever, and they also don't look like that cute dinosaur nerd from your favorite sitcom. Because in between all of the fun, all of the comedy, all of the exaggerated sensational stories, Superstore doesn't present any sort of romanticized version of life at minimum wage. The series sheds light on the plight of minimum wage workers, while still being very entertaining and fun to watch. And that's because of good comedy and writing, but also because the show understands in between the very straightforward message to add a lot of nuance and complexity to these people and the situation. They are not one-dimensional NPCs in the background like in most television and film. Neither are they reduced to simply victims without any sort of agency or distinction between them, like in a lot of social commentary. They are main and side characters with their own distinct interests and traits, and they are treated to have their own agency and responsibilities, while at the same time the show does not deny that these characters do not have that much power over their own situation. Which is a stark contrast with stuff like Squid Game, where the moral is just, oh well, rich people are bad, so you have no responsibility for your behavior at all. Superstore knows how to create an interesting and dynamic set of characters while still using them to tell a very basic moral, portraying worker exploitation and the lengths that companies will go to keep this system in check. Given how much lower class workers have been laid off during the pandemic, it is no surprise that Superstore also had to acknowledge it in their show. And in a way you can actually argue that Cloud9's demise was because of the pandemic due to the digitalization of the retail sector. So Superstore really was the right show at the right time because they could finish on this very topical and actual note. But let's talk about season 6 as a whole. I feel season 4 and 5 were kind of not that good. They were monotonous and they were repetitive with its jokes and with its plot, mostly due to the focus on story arcs like Amy and Jonah's relationship. But then there's season 6 and it really picks up the pace and the humor and the episodic premise to the same level as the early seasons. Mostly thanks to Amy leaving to work at corporate. Yeah, I feel like Amy and Jonah together wasn't nearly as interesting as the build up to it. On the contrary, I did enjoy how Jonah coping with the breakup was handled in this season. Jonah had always been the golden boy, the young, relatively attractive guy who has opportunities, who is considered to be pulling below his weight at Cloud9. He was the everyman, the guy in the spotlight and the leader. He was not the guy that you made fun of. Jonah was never arrogant about this and blessed the writers for that, because that could have easily made him kind of annoying and arrogant, and Mary Sue is. Either way, Jonah was this fresh young man who hadn't been beaten down by the world yet and therefore had this very optimistic mindset. Then in the 6th season, albeit for like personal reasons, Jonah does come off very different. He's a slow, unexcited middle-aged man like everyone else, and he's kind of the butt of the joke as well because Amy left him and everyone knows in the store. He's not hot, he's not optimistic, he's not fresh, he's not a leader or even the voice of reason everyman. He is frustrated and he's down and he's old, and people aren't that nice to him. And while I really like Jonah, it is very glorious to see. I like that this season he was more in the background or had his own side plots and that the other characters could be the one instigating the main plots for once. And they don't milk their breakup between Amy and Jonah for sadness either. I like reservedness, which is also why I like how Dina and Garrett just get together so mundanely while watching Glenn's interview tapes of everyone. May I also say that that entire scene is just genius. When they're packing up the store, you expect that to basically be it until the end, as that was the episode up until that point. And then when Glenn comes in with the tapes, you think it's the throwaway gag. But no, they end the finale with this very heartwarming scene with a really nice atmosphere as all the employees get together to laugh at those old tapes and have fun together. It's nice to see them end their job as well as the show having fun and laughing at themselves. It leads to some really nice jokes and self-awareness. Speaking of jokes, let's address the comedy again. As I said, the show was funny again. A lot of the jokes in season 4 and 5 were characters just mentioning a political stance that they had in the lunchroom, satirizing people with set views, and it got really repetitive and forced. When this season had a political or cultural reference, it often fits the flow of the scene. It's funny, and it's not just the mention of a topic but an actual joke about the reference, making it feel less like forced attempts at being edgy and more like a normal, actually decent joke. And in the season there were some jokes that actually made me laugh on my side, like Glenn walking in on Tien and Lowell Anderson with his new haircut, and Marcus finding the bag of feet and shouting just everything that would get the store closed down. I also really liked Sandra this season. She got a lot more talkative, and her awkward and yet also somewhat confident remarks are completely genius. And that brings us to the one thing they didn't do too well in this season. Introducing Hannah just to rush everything and drop her to get Jonah back with Amy in the finale. It's sad because I thought she was likable, and it was funny how she couldn't really stand Carol either despite being her lawyer. But what really took away from the plot and the themes of the show for me was Amy leaving corporate and getting back with Jonah. I see why this is kind of wholesome, but that's the thing with Superstore. It's not wholesome, right? It's supposed to be realistic and a bit gritty at times. Wouldn't it be more intriguing if Amy actually was the one doing the inspection and ultimately stabbed everyone in the back to get the store closed? I mean, yeah, it's tragic and it's dark, but that's the show. And I would argue that the ending as it is not a happy ending either. Outside of the Amy and Jonah ending up together bit, it's very beautifully tragic. You grew to love this store and its employees for so many years, and despite it still being a job, as Garrett says, it was a job these people got accustomed to, with a group of colleagues they got along with. And all of this is taken away from them without anything any of them can do about it. Jonah's desperation really says everything. They have been beaten down and repressed by Sephra so many times. They were put up against each other. They failed to unionize. Now there's really nothing they can do anymore. I would say there's somewhat of a better situation for Glenn, Cheyenne and Mateo. But Dina, Sandra, Marcus and Justine keep working for this horrible company that might just as well fire them a month later. And we don't even know what happened with Garrett other than dating Dina. The ending being played as beautiful and nostalgic despite its implications is however in line with the strength of Superstore. While it's a sitcom, so of course the situations get exaggerated for comedy purposes, the entertainment also helps to remind us that there is still sensation amidst a tragic life on minimum wage. Just like how these characters aren't treated like one-dimensional or helpless victims, the show also knows to nuance the lives of these characters, reminding us that even on minimum wage, even at the bottom, you can still find sensation from time to time. You can still find moments of beauty.